First of all, guys, thank you so much for subscribing and thank you so much for still being a part of my family. It has been so much going on. Like before I was pregnant, I was like just trying to do something. But I finally am in my own place. Again, thank you so much. I'm so happy. And also, I'm about to be testing out to see what we can do with this and see if we can be able to decorate my counters for under $20. And honestly, it's not even 20, it's under 15. So let's decorate my counters for under a budget. So y'all, what I have is this contact paper right here. It's called the Easy Liner, and it's like removable adhesive surface contact paper at Walmart. And I'm just testing it out to give it a try, like heads up. I always wanted to try it. And then we have this, which I also got there. It was like they have this and this. It was all in like one packet right here, and it was only $5. So I don't think like my bathroom sink, it's not that big. So I'm going to probably test it out to see what it all shows and see if this process works. So let's get to it. So guys, what I did for starting off was I first had cleaned off the surface. Like I got a paper towel and just dried off the areas. So that way, I can be able to have it stick on and it won't have any problems with it trying to slide off or, fall off. Because I noticed a lot, like they say, you always have to make sure to clean the areas. Then that's when I started measuring. Because when I measure it, I had to grab my scissors. So that way I can be able to cut it and know like how long it's going to be. But other than that, after you kind of get that process done, you measure it. I always say measure a little bit longer than the length it is. So that way, once you know the length that you're measuring, you don't have any issues in the future. And then you have to be able to recut it, add on more strips. But a good note is that's going to happen anyways. But what I did was I started from one side. And then I had went into the other. And it's very sticky. So it's very, very sticky. So a good note is when you're using that, you need to make sure that you ought to have some nails and look closely at the paper because it can just kind of grab onto anything. That's a good note for cleaning the surface. And disregard those clothes in the back. I was about to wash, but I had just realized, like I said, I got tired and I had this sitting in my house for like the longest. So I was like, let me just start on this. And a good thing is that knife that they have is very, like the paper is thin, but it's still durable. So by that, I mean like you can cut that paper and it still will be able to attach. So what I started doing was I started from the top part and worked my way down. And I know people use the thing where you're supposed to, that shut like that show right there. That's what I did to make sure to kind of help it stay on more smoother. And no matter what, sometimes you're going to get air bubbles. It's going to be a lot of times where you have to like replace it, reorganize it. But what I would say is just keep on going. Don't let it stop you just because you may mess up for like 1 second. So once you get to that part, really all of it is just fun again. So I saw like, at the sink part, whenever you have like a him and her sink, it's basically just always that part, especially when it's not the rim around it. That's what I was so frustrated on. It was like that rim around it. That was the main thing. But what I did was I had measured it out, cut it, and that's when I realized just to cut that part and not keep that one all the way down. And I started marking it with the X-Acto knife. And when I marked it down, it made it a lot easier. So one thing I could tell you is always make sure to keep that X-Acto knife. That's a very, very, very good note to use. And then other than that, after you get that part and clear it around the top, so the top portion of when there's the faucet, then mainly everything else will start falling into place for you. And as you can see as well, is that what I noticed was after cutting that part and getting that portion done, what I did is you're going to see it's going to be like a part still left out. Like you see, I just cut that part over. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to still go back. And a good thing with that paper is that contact paper, it blends in so well. So it's like all you do is just like keep covering it, and it's going to all fall in place. Now, I was thinking about just leaving that whole circle rim of the sink out, but I had just decided to still cover up most of it because this did not really look right to me. So what I did was I had that, entry part, like how you see the rim in a smaller rim. The main thing I did was just keep that smaller rim open, but the outer rim, I'd still covered that with the contact paper. But what I may look into doing probably for the future is getting like another, see about getting like a way of covering that portion. But what I did was I cut around the rim with the X-Acto knife, so that way you can make it more clear. But other than that, I'll let you guys all see the process, and then I'll come back on the other part. After you get that part around the sink, it's all going to, like I said, fall into place. So what I did instead was I saw that, okay, the sink, and then another note is those drain stoppers I grabbed, I had made sure to just cover that up. And because I noticed the paper was falling, and I did not want the paper falling in the drains and stocking up the drains, so I said, let me just put these down. But what I did was I took like a smaller sheet and actually just had measured it around and took it off and basically placed it down, so that way I can be able to cover the bottom part instead of having to use a whole sheet for that one. Now, if it was just like a straight counter, then obviously, yeah, I can just keep that whole sheet and not have to cut as much. But when it's not a straight counter, that's when I had to kind of do a whole new process and say, okay, yep, we're going to have to cut this and see about how that one comes. And I know you see the tape is going over the sink, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut around the sink so that way it can still go down, but it doesn't look like, it does not fall into place. My main thing I'm doing right now is just trying to get this covering the main parts, and then the sink, the faucets, all of that will then be fixed by the portions of getting those little pieces. And a good note I would tell you is that any strips you get, as you can see, I'm like cutting that part off. Any strips that you have, always make sure to keep it, because those strips are going to be some cleanups. Now this is the part where you can get the next sheet and then, like I say, measure. So you always measure and measure a little bit over what you already have. And the easier thing with this one is the middle part. That was so much easier. But so it's like all you have to do really was just place it down. And you already have the main part. So the sides, I would always say, are the hardest. So you always make sure the sides are going to be your hardest areas. But after you get that side down and you're at that middle part, it's really just straightforward from there. And a good note is if you have a sink where the rim is already on the outside and it's not really going in and it's actually higher up, basically I would use that I feel like that would be way easier for you, and all you gotta do is just cut around and fix a little bit of the areas. But when it's like going inside, that just kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. But other than that, after you start figuring out what you're doing, it all really falls in place. So I just start going back down with that, push it forward, just pull the paper back. And what I did was I pulled the paper down, but I pulled the paper down bit by bit. But once I started getting towards the end, I just kind of took it off from that point and just let it kind of, you know, just let it all go bit by bit. But as you can see, I'm mainly doing the key things first, and then those small parts, then that's when you do that segment. So you see like that small part in the middle, I'm making sure to do the big parts first, and then we're going to clean up with those other pieces of paper that we have. And it's not really that hard. And then also a good thing is like I remember seeing a lot of videos where they said air bubbles. Air bubbles are there, but what I noticed that what makes it easier is sometimes you still can have the air bubbles, but is a key thing is popping those air bubbles. Now I don't pop every single air bubble while I'm doing this, but what I did instead was I kind of did it after the video, but the finished result really is like really nice. Part we're entering on where I was saying about, you see that seam part? Yep, get every single last little strip, and those last strips I'm cutting that open, so I'm like making sure to go in so that way it can be more easier to use. And then after that I started cutting a lot and then fixing up errors to see what things I can add. And those small strips that we have left over, all I did was use that and cut those pieces to fix that area. See what I'm doing? I'm putting it around it, but I'm like cutting that part, and then I'm just, and yeah, it looks a little wonky right now, but all I'm doing is just kind of putting the paper around so I can know the shape that I'm looking for. And then once I stick it on, what you do then is you can either use your scissors, but a key thing is that X-Acto knife that they provide for you, that will become your best friend. Like when I started using that X-Acto knife, like that really helped a lot, because one thing about that one that they provide for you, and I saw at Walmart, that is, it's not really that durable, because like I used it and it literally broke on me. So it kind of chipped, and it's not really like that, you know, I would say it's very jolly. So it worked it worked for this. Yeah, it worked for this. But in the future, if I do use that, I'm probably going to get another X-Acto knife. But like, you know, the paper, everything else, yeah, that works good. So I would definitely say that paper is it's very sticky. So that's another thing. But I don't know if it's supposed to be sticky, so that way it can stay on. But other than that, feeling like, okay, it's going to pull off and just rip up, no, it's not like that. I'm back. So did the same thing, cut around And a good thing what I didn't learn with this way was I cut it around it instead. So what I saw was I was like, okay, that actually works better. So I cut around it, and I should have did that with the first side, but I don't know what I was thinking. But then I was kind of a little bit crooked, so I had to clean up some things. But after I did that, I was like, oh, that makes it a lot easier. So after I started cutting and placing, sticking, everything really started working back again. Now guys, this is what I meant when, like I said, just clean up that area, and after that it start just coming into place, and then you start knowing, all right, what look you're going for. And when you get those main parts done, the sides really just fall in afterwards. So like you see those sides, that's when, okay, all I did was just measure that, cut a slight strand out. And really with that part, all I did was just kind of, cut a strip, take out the whole strip, lay it down, and then bend it there. And then I did the same thing with the other one, and I made it longer. But what I did was instead just made it to match that part, but not make it too long. So I had kind of cut it. And a good thing I would say is bending the paper to like the part where you have to cut it, in case your X-Acto knife is not that good to just easily go through it. So instead of like damaging the knife and just messing up everything, I just kind of bent it. And then obviously go over, fix the area, cut it, and then after that do the same thing with the next side. And as you can see, what I started doing was I started going on the edge, trimming, pulling the little parts, and then refixing it. Like all I did was just it's like kind of like recycling. You just get what you have, and whatever you have left over, you can use it on another part. So if you have one part that's probably too far up, cut it, lay it back down on the right area. And that really helped a lot. So as you can see, I'm doing the same thing with this side. Pull it off. And then after that, you pull it off, put it completely on the area. And after you get all of that done, fixing up the spots, like use every small piece you have. That helps a lot. Like that helps with a lot of things. And then you can just get that whole strip, place that on that side. And make sure always, like I said, if it starts kind of being too far up, then use that. And you really are basically about to be done. guys, this is the end result. And I am so obsessed. I love it. I'm still going to be fixing on some things. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. And see you next time.